Okay, so I wanted to talk about some computations of associated cycles. And I guess, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, Leticia Barcini and I tried to calculate associated cycles, and we decided discrete series was a good place to start. And we came up with an algorithm that was pretty good for about half the classical groups. You could sort of take a parameter for a discrete series and sort of very quickly calculate the multiplicity, the associated variety and the multiplicity polynomial. And then for the other, well, I'll say a little more later about the other classical groups were a bit more, not quite as nice from that point of view. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll sort of migrate toward what the atlas might do. Okay, so,
Click the round button.
No, I think that's the one on the right. Except you meant that one on the right. That's it. Close it and open it. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's the question, to compute the associated cycle, and that's the associated variety plus multiplicity. And okay, so I guess I prepared some of this before Peter spoke. So he actually said quite a number of things that are quite helpful. So this is my notation, and maybe the two guys at the bottom are the important ones. The nilpotent cone in the complex Lie algebra, and I call it n theta, the intersection with t. And okay, and then this script B here is the flag variety. So those are the two sort of geometric pieces. And my k and g are the complexifications of the real group and the maximal compact. Okay. So this was supposed to be a super brief definition of associated variety, associated cycle, and Peter pretty much said that in quite a bit more detail. And so maybe I'll just kind of move on from this. But the, I guess I'll just repeat. Oh. Uh-oh. There we go. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So the associated gradient is supported in the nilpotent cone, and in fact is a union of k orbits. And whenever I write the union of k orbits, I mean sort of take the ones of sort of maximal dimension that are in there, because they're in the closure. But the others be in the closure anyway. Okay, so that's the associated variety, and then the associated cycle is a multiplicity that goes with each. And here I'm saying that that GER corresponds to a coherent sheaf, which is something like a vector bundle, and the multiplicity is something like the rank of the vector bundle. So that's maybe a little bit of intuition. And I think almost all of this is repeating what Peter said. All of the k orbits in T, nilpotent k orbits in T that occur have the same dimension. And the G saturation, the complex nilpotent orbit, is the same for every one that occurs. And that is the associated variety of the inner dimension of the orbits is the Gelfand-Kirillov dimension. And then if you take a coherent family of representation, so, it should be irreducible in the dominant chamber and they're labeled by infinitesimal character. Then the multiplicities that occur in the associated cycle are actually polynomials in lambda. So that's an important thing. And they're W harmonic polynomials. And so, in a sense, the thing you want to do is, you want to calculate the associated cycle, so associated variety with multiplicities that are integers, but what you really want is the polynomial that goes with it. Depends only on the k-types. And, well, the last statement here is, I guess, a little bit of intuition. But I think I have a few typos here. It's supposed to be the closure. The associated variety is the closure of a single orbit, then this formula gives the multiplicity. It's an integer. And that would be the k-isotypic component for some highest weight mu. And that's a little bit like what I think Jeff was calculating with the atlas by calculating dimensions of k-types up to a certain dimension, or a certain height, I guess. Okay, and yeah, the reference with details of much of this and many more properties is David's paper in 1991. Okay, so one way you can think about computing these polynomials, the multiplicity polynomials, is the following. A representation has associated to it some B module, and the characteristic cycle is, well, I mean, don't really want to say it in detail, but it's a similar construction to the associated variety, where you take GER with the B module and so forth. And the characteristic cycle is, well, the characteristic variety would be a union of conormal bundles to K orbits. And then there would be multiplicities, the Ni is associated to that. And the fact is, well, a couple facts. Well, okay, I already said that. The first fact is the associated, oh no, I didn't say that. The associated variety is the moment map image of the characteristic variety. And maybe, since this has come up a handful of times, I should maybe write it a little bit better. So, for instance, if you have if you have an orbit Q, which is K dot B, KGB, then you can think of the conormal bundle as K cross over K intersect B, N intersect P. And then the moment map takes this to K and intersect P. And the fact is that this is the closure of a single orbit. And so what this is saying is, if you want to compute the associated variety, first find the characteristic cycle and apply the moment maps, and you get a bunch of K orbits. Of course, the characteristic cycle is harder to compute than the associated variety, so it's maybe not so practical. And then the associated cycle is, well, it's that OI is that guy. I should have written it like that. It's the image of the moment map for a component. Then the associated cycle has multiplicity, that is this multiplicity, times the dimension of some sheaf on the inverse image. And that mu sub I is sort of the restriction of the full moment map to the ith conormal one. And, okay, and so,
So where, how in this sum, I mean, there's some of the components of the associated cycle where the moment map image is too small to contribute. Where do they fall?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Some of the I's.
Oh, yes, you're right. That sum should be over, yeah, the sum should be over only those QI's so that this has maximal dimension.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because there are some that are lower dimension, but that does not contribute at all. Yeah, actually, I should have put that. Okay, so that's at least an outline of how you can attempt to compute. Except, you know, sort of every step is difficult. Characteristic cycle is not known. You have to calculate the image here, and then you have to calculate some space of sections. And this house of lambda, it'll end up being some row shift of lambda when you put in x lambda. Okay, so, okay, well, I just said that, I guess. Oh, yeah, and so maybe this is worth saying. Peter had an example in SP4R, where you have the four discrete series down here, then sort of up one, up another, and here. So this is the KGB, and I'll say that was a cell, and that was a cell, that was a cell, that was a cell. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to be writing cells. This is KGB, not the orbits. Sorry, so let's forget, well, how about I'll do that. Yeah, that's a cell, but this is the, this is the cell, and the KGB with just one at the top, 3. And his map from KGB to nilpotent orbits, which was, I guess, the orbit 0.
Zero's a column.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's that orbit. And then the next one was this guy, which is the minimal orbit, O min. And then this guy was O sub, and then this guy. Sorry. This guy. And his map from the KGB to these guys was exactly this map. And what happens here is these guys all have the same associated variety. This cell, remember, associated variety is constant on the cell, and that was O sub. And then he said that sort of the fibers of this map are these guys. Now I forget exactly. These guys. Was that correct, Peter?
That's right, yep.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Then you look at this, and the associated varieties are all the same, but the moment map images are different. And that's explained by the fact that if we call that one about x0, x1, x2, like that's, I think, how Atlas lists them.
0,
cell.
4, and 7 maybe, but.
Well, okay. No, yeah, it's something like 2, 4, and 7, but then within a cell, Atlas numbers them 0, 1, 2, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2. So within a cell for the numbering. Then the characteristic cycle for this guy is the conormal bundle of the Q corresponding to this, plus another one, and that's this one. And so the moment map image of this is this guy. The moment map image of this is this guy. And so you get the right associated variety from something else in the characteristic cycle here. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I guess the main reason we chose discrete series was that the discrete series correspond to closed orbits which have smooth closure. And so whenever you have a KGB with smooth closure, characteristic cycle, I'm not sure I wrote it there exactly, characteristic cycle, if this guy is smooth closure, is exactly 1 times the conormal bundle of that world. And so that means we don't have to worry about computing characteristic cycle.
So what is the notation X Q?
I'm sorry?
Maybe I missed it.
This is a representation corresponding to that KGB.
I guess you just have to be, there could be multiple representation.
I'm sorry?
Don't you want to single out a particular one corresponding to that? I mean, in the open orbit, for example, for SL2R, you have you have the trivial representation, that formula works, and then you have the irreducible principal series, and that formula doesn't work.
That's what discrete series.
Oh, are you just back in discrete series? Well, I don't know if that's I think you were trying to make a general statement.
Yeah, I was.
Okay. So I think you want maybe at infinitesimal character rho, you want the trivial local system.
Oh, the trivial local system, yes, yes. Which the discrete series. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to compute the image of the moment map, and we have to understand the inverse image of the F that we get. And then we have to compute sections. Okay, so the U inverse of F is a Springer fiber of F. If you simply write down what it is and project from the cotangent bundle to B, it's exactly this guy, which is the Springer fiber. And then its components are inside the closures of the conormal bundle. Well, at least if F is in P, then the components are inside the conormal bundles. So essentially what we have with our inverse image here, inside the one conormal bundle, is a component of the Springer fiber, or maybe a couple components. And okay, so that's something that typically is not so easy to compute. Okay, so we take our closed orbit and we want to describe, what am I doing? Oh yeah, we won't. I'm getting ahead of myself. But we want to describe this inverse image of F, and one way to get started is is to consider this set, then it's sort of obvious that this applied to B is exactly the Springer fiber. It's the set of things that, so that F is in some set of rels containing F. But this you can kind of work on and compute. And notice that this contains the centralizer of F. So that's a start. Okay, so for the holomorphic discrete series, everything is extremely easy. The rel contains P inverse, P minus. We have a P plus and a P minus. And this set is all of K because K preserves P minus. So typically it won't. Right? It won't preserve N intersect P, but it's just P minus in this case. And so the component Springer fiber is just a flag variety for K. And then you want to compute the sections of that, and it's just the dimension of the representation. And that bar should be over the whole orbit. And I went here to some F being some root vector. I think I set it up so that B is H plus N minus. Line it up to the roots. But typically, this component is not homogeneous. So what we did was, well, we took our first classical group, UPQ, and well, discrete series are parameterized by regular integral, and you can assume they're dominant for some fixed positive root system of K. And so we took that, a lambda, dominant regular integral, and found an algorithm to find the F that gives the moment map image. And then from that description of F, we can express the component of the Springer fiber as an iterated bundle of flag varieties. And once you have that, then you can use the Borel-Bay theorem to compute the sections at polynomial. So let me just say really quick how it goes, because it makes good sense. And so what I do is I take lambda equals 10, 9, 7, 6, 5, 1, and this is in U64, I think. 64, and then 8, 4, 3, 2. And that's regular integral and kind of a random positive system. And what you do is you go like this. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So these numbers are up and these numbers are down. And then what you want to do is find something in N intersect P with biggest Jordan form. And this guy, oh, and I number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so this gives, well, I'll call it a F0. And that is a root vector, 7 minus 1 plus 3 minus 7 plus 8 minus 3 plus root vector 6 minus 8.
Can you explain again how you do this?
What I'm essentially doing is simple root, simple root, simple root, simple, 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 simple. And it has to drop down by 1, the simple root.
But you do this from lambda?
And that, yeah, if it drops down by 1, it's a simple root. So 2 minus 3 is not simple. It's 2 minus 7. And it's non-compact because it's going here and here. So this gives an element in N intersect P. And then what you do is you this, 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 and that gives what I'll call an L. And I'll just say delta L is equal to the span of the simple compact roots. Right? That's simple, that's simple, and compact, that. Well, there's nothing. And this L is contained in that N. Well, okay, let me not quite say it yet. And then you take out that little string of things, and you have a 2, a 4, 5, 6, what's that, 9 and 10 are here. And you do the same thing. So that's another piece of the Jordan form. Equals 9 minus 2 plus 6 minus 9. And then you have an L1 that's, again, simple compact roots. And, but they're different now. These guys, nothing there. These guys. And you'll notice that L1 is not contained in L because of 2 minus 4, for instance. That's a 2 here. And then, well, you omit that and you're down to nothing there. 5. Then you have an L2 that's, again, corresponding to, I shouldn't say equal, but corresponding to the simple compact root. And then the statement is that, well, that F is the sum of those FIs. And these correspond exactly to Jordan blocks. And then the component of Springer fiber is L2, L1, L dot D. And this is an iterated one. So that's, well, that's how the construction goes in a Okay, so the theorem is that, well, if you do this in general, then you get an iterated one. And just a couple quick examples. The holomorphic discrete series again. Well, the positive system looks like this. Right? You have all simple roots except one non-compact simple root, all simple roots, and then you just do this. And when you pass to the second one, well, why don't I say you do this? And then if you omit that, well, you're still going to have, okay, that's your simple roots determining L, and then your L1 is determined by these. And so the is going to be, well, the L determined by this is just K. And further steps don't add. So we're back to this component of Springer fiber being the flange variety for K. And then you can do this for other examples, say UPP. The large discrete series has all non-compact roots. And so you have one Jordan block going through it, and the L is just the torus. And so the multiplicity is 1. And well, you can do this for the quaternionic discrete series for, let's say, UP2 as a quaternionic discrete series. You have the p plus 1 root here, p plus 2 root here, 1, 2, over p here, so you have that, and that's it. And the that gives the L. It's a flag variety of elevator and tells you exactly what multiplicity is. And then there's and these are boring examples because the Springer fiber component is homogeneous. So a more interesting example is this one. Or I guess that one would have been a good one too. But you go through here and you get, this is an L, then you omit the ones that are used, and you have another here, and another. And I've written down what things are, but notice that root 5 minus 7 is in L1, but not in L, so you get an honest iterated one. And then you calculate the sections, and in this case, the L2 didn't contribute anything, so it's sort of a two-step iterated bundle. And you compute the sections, and you get this polynomial. And the only thing you have to do in computing the sections is Borel-Bay theory, but you do have to, after you do this step, you get an L representation, which you have to restrict to L1 intersect L. But that's always a branching rule for GLN to GL1 cross GLN minus 1, which is very easy. So this is something that you can do for all the discrete series easily and quickly. Okay, so. And I guess, well, I'll get to this in a second, but at the time we're doing this, Peter suggested an algorithm to do this for all representations and for UPQ. And that's, and let me say quickly what that is. It's a little closer to what the Atlas might do. And UPQ, there's some facts. Each cell representation is irreducible. And each cell